So here they are, about 13 years after he arrives at Ellis Island, in about 1928, playing a party song, a happy little jam with his kid. This is called Opala, which just means, well, it's just something you say when you're happy, like opa in Greek. But anyway, love these guys. Been asked on a number of occasions, who is this for? Who do I think this is all, directed at? And since I've been traveling the past 2 weeks, telling some of these stories and playing some of these records and looking out into people's faces and sharing these things that I love, and I just feel very fortunate, and I realize now that it's for you. And it's getting to have all this together and know that I'm not, quite so alone and quite maybe even as crazy as I might have suspected originally. But the answer that I had always given was that it's for like this woman who we'll listen to next. Her name is Isabel Panosian. Because the world is awful. The world is profoundly out of balance, and history is terribly long, and life is terribly short. And to be able to see an instance in which you can, of your own natural inclinations, your own style, you can help rebalance the world slightly. You can justify things so that the world is maybe slightly less awful. Is just such a great privilege. It's such a fun thing to do, and it's so exciting any chance that you get to do it. hearing this record over and over again, I have decided that I just don't want to live in a world where people don't listen to Isabel Panosian. This record was made April of 1917. Isabel was 23 years old when she made this record. She was the mother of a 6-year-old daughter at the time. She lived at 143rd Street, and she recorded 11 sides in 11 months. And that's all we know. For 95 years, this record has been absolutely neglected. But the crazy thing is that it was a huge hit. It was, like I said, issued in 1917, and it stayed continuously in print. It was the very last record that Columbia Records deleted from their Armenian catalog in 1931. I don't know how many copies they sold. I do know that I have 2 copies, and they're the identical catalog and matrix numbers. And they're completely different performances. They're different takes of the same piece. I believe that the company wore out the metal stamper parts. They pressed so many copies that they then had to use other takes in order to keep the record in print. The demand was so great for this record. I can't be sure about that. And I also believe that there's a 3rd take in circulation. So if you run across a copy of a record by Isabel Panosian, let me know. I'd like to hear it. I don't need to own it. I just want to hear it. That's all. So the song is a very, very famous song, which continues to be recorded all the time to this day. The song is Grunk, which means crane. It's a setting of a poem from the late 19th century written by Hovhannes Tumanian. And apparently it was set by the great patriarch of Armenian music in the late 19th and early 20th century, Komitas Vadarpet, who was a priest, an ethnographer, and a great composer. Debussy called him a genius, for instance. Anyway, the subject of the song is crane, is what grunk means. A bird whose nest has been destroyed and no longer has a home to go back to. That's why it sold so many copies. What I've been trying to explain to myself is why our origin myth, the story of the origin of human beings among Christians, Jews, and Muslims, that God created everything with a sound combined with its meaning, a word, and then there was a perfect place that we got to have for a while, and then we all went into exile. That's our origin myth begins with exile and dispersion and a curse. By the way, the third chapter of the Bible is my very favorite because it is absolutely the worst news anyone could possibly read. The things that God actually says to Adam and Eve at that point are unbelievably harsh. You were dirt, and you will be dirt again, and that's all you've ever been, and all you'll ever be, and you should think about that. You should think about the sweat that you will sweat in order to eat bread. All there will be was this horrible stuff that comes up out of the earth, and that's all you get to eat, buddy. From here on out, it's going to be hard. And then to Eve, you're always going to want him, and you're never going to have him. You're never going to have him, and you're going to have his children, and it's going to hurt. Brutal cursing. And then he sets up at the gate of the Garden of Eden as they leave 2 cherubim to guard a rotating flaming sword to guard the path back. Now, I believe that the sword not only rotates in space, but also in time, so that if you had a time machine, you wouldn't be able to get back still. So this is the story where we come from. Armenians, Greeks, and Southern Slavs have kept alive the story of the next 3 days after the exile. The story goes that Adam and Eve didn't know how to fend for themselves, and they starved for 3 days. They were desperately hungry, and Satan came back and said to them, I can feed you. And he pulls out this tablet, and he says, sign here. And the document was that Adam and Eve Adam signed away all of his descendants. All of humanity got signed away to Satan on the 3rd day out. And that story was cut out from the Bible, but some people have kept it alive. It's actually referred to in the New Testament. The Messiah is the one who breaks the contract. But anyway, just coincidence, I think, that a lot of this music does come from walking distance from the historical Garden of Eden.